you, Jackie. I'm really excited to be here today. And when Rhea and the group invited me in to talk to you today, we wanted to focus on finding inspiration from within. Because we're all inspired by different things. Is that true? So it's how do you connect that inspiration with making change in your life? And that's what we're going to focus on quite a bit in this talk today. Inspiration defined, let's see if we can get this guy to move, is a divine influence that directly and immediately exerted upon the mind or soul. So again, a divine influence directly and immediately exerted on the mind or soul. Can you relate when I say that we're inspired by a lot of different things? Some of those things that inspire us are very positive things, relationships, activities, events, happenings in life. But they can also be negative things as well that alter our perspective and create inspiration for each of us. Some people take inspiration and they turn it into colorful, vibrant, healthy living. They make change in their lives that equate to living happy days, feeling less stress, sleeping well, which then means better happiness overall in their life. I received an email last week from a woman who attended an all-day event about women's health back in June. And I was so excited and surprised at the same time to hear from her. She wrote about how that one day was a life-changing experience for her, and that she had lost 25 pounds to date. She was sleeping better. She had more energy than she had ever had in years. She's in her young 60s. She cares for an ailing mom. She has a brother in need as well. She's got her own children, and she's taxed in her life. Continuously throughout the email, she would say, "Angie, thank you so much for changing my life." There were other people also at the event that day, but I haven't received emails with such robust, life-changing experiences from all of them. So why is it that some people take inspiration and create this lovely, vibrant, healthy living, and others do not? Where does the difference exist? And that's what I want to talk to you mostly about today, is that for right now, we live in a society where mostly we're reactive in our approach to health and well-being versus being proactive. When you're reactive, the things that take place are waiting for your doctor's appointment to come up. If any of you have been in the hot seat before, like this gentleman, you're waiting for your doctor's appointment. You know something might be off, right? And then you get there and you receive bad news. Maybe you get your biometric testing results from the Eagle County testing that you do. Have any of you thought, holy crap, I had no idea my cholesterol level was so high. I've got to get this under wraps. Or wow, my blood pressure, I've not had it checked in 2 years and it's off the charts, skyrocketed. It's often when we see those numbers or we go to the doctor and they say, Angie, my goodness, you've got a lot going on. This is progressing. Or worst case scenario, they might say, you have X diagnosis. And in some cases, it's a diagnosis or a disease that will take your breath away. And if you haven't been in the hot seat yourself, maybe you know someone else who has. But taking a reactive approach to life and being in a reactive mode when you think about your overall health can be very isolating, overwhelming. There's a lot of emotion involved in it. And I know all too well about living in a reactive life mode versus the opposite. When I was 34 years old, I was blessed with my second child. And everything was great. My daughter at the time was 4. My son Sean was born in November. And life was brilliant. I was excited. It was kind of a hard pregnancy, honestly, to tell you the truth. But he was finally there. He was a ball of good energy right from the start. But shortly after having him, some things changed in my body. It started with innocent joint pain. I had made a pact with my sister-in-law to lose the weight. We were going on vacation together, so we made our Summer Sisters bikini pact, which is very fearful thought because I hadn't been in one of those things since high school. But we made a commitment that for 1 hour on one day at the beach, we had to sport these bikinis. And so I was very motivated to lose the baby weight, just as she was motivated to be my coach and supporter and do some healthy things for herself. So that's how this journey innocently started. As I went to the YMCA, ready to do some workouts, and quickly came home with a swollen elbow, hurting. The next class, it was a wrist. The next class, I thought I injured my knee. I was an athlete my entire life. It didn't take me too long to realize the fact that this isn't just stuff that happens when you're out of shape. Something is wrong. The joint pain progressed very quickly, very aggressively. I sought help from doctors who didn't always know what the answer was. By Christmas that year, I got the Mac Daddy can opener that opens bottles, cans, all of it, because I could no longer use my hands to grip any cover and turn it to take it off the top, to take the top off the can. I had a very hard time changing my son's diapers because I couldn't grasp those little tabs on the disposable diapers to pull it open. My daily functioning at 34 years of age went from being very active, a very involved mom when it comes to playing at the park and doing all these things with my daughter, to barely getting by. I would take the railing for the stairwell. We lived in a 2-story home at the time, and I would physically have to hold on to the railing and take one step up at a time, embrace myself, because the pain was so severe. When you go through chronic pain like that, it affects everyone in the family. So my 4-year-old, who loved playing dolls on the floor, putting puzzles together, would start qualifying her statements. So instead of saying, "Mom, can we sit together and play whatever?" Candyland was her favorite back then. She turned it to, "Mom, are your joints okay today? Or do you think we should wait to play Candyland?" Because she had seen me too many times get on the floor and not be able to get back up. It's hard. It affects the children. It affects the husband. He had a wife who would go to bed crying every night because the pain was so severe, and wake up crying again because the pain was so severe, and I had to figure out how to tackle another day in this body of mine. And it was not uncommon that he would give me a hug and sit me up in the bed, and I would sit there and brace myself for my feet to hit the carpeted flooring, which should be nice and squishy, but for my feet that were inflamed and in severe pain, it wasn't. It takes a toll on everyone. Everything continued to progress. So after joint pain came the chronic fatigue. I loved loungewear. Does anyone have loungewear at home? That's what I call my fancy sweatsuits or pajamas that you might be able to wear to the grocery store because they kind of look like a sweatsuit, right? You could sleep in it, and then I could just stay in it all day because I didn't have the energy to shower. And washing my hair was excruciatingly painful because my hands hurt so bad. So loungewear became my best friend. The other thing that comes with chronic fatigue, or for me at least, that followed chronic fatigue, was brain fog. I had lots of what some people might call a brain fart. I would put milk or something that belonged in the fridge in my pantry. And if I didn't need it that day, I would find it the next morning spoiled. I would be in mid-conversation with a friend or family member and completely lose my train of thought. There would be dead silence, and I had no idea where I was going with that thought. I'm an educated woman. I've worked in corporate America all my years prior to starting my own business. I say that because when you know you can be successful, when you know you can carry a conversation, and all of a sudden you can't, it starts to bring your self-confidence down a bit. You remove yourself from social experiences and activities. In the beginning, you say, no thanks, or maybe I could come, but then your body fails you, and so then you have to cancel. And then that turns into just telling everyone, no, I can't make it this time, I'm so sorry. And then what happens when you say no too many times? You don't get invited anymore. So your social life dwindles a bit. You're isolated, you're alone, all the while going to doctors trying to figure out what was going on with my body. After about a year, I started experiencing these crazy bouts of muscle weakness and dizziness in my head. I'd have where it felt like the whole room was doing one of these things, and my legs would get very, very weak. Most often, I could get myself out of it. I would recover quickly and then just go back to what I was doing. But there was one instance. Our home was open format. So you had the open kitchen, family room concept. And the baby and my daughter were in the family room playing, and I was cooking dinner. And that time, the dizzy spell didn't go away. So I felt myself getting dizzy while at the stove. The legs went weak, but I never recovered. That time, I started dropping to the floor. So I knew enough to grab onto the counter, like this with my arms, and I did a little army call, dragging my legs to the phone to call my husband to come home. He worked about 17, 20 minutes away from home. And I dropped to the floor, and I army crawled and laid on the floor with my babies. And let me tell you, I was scared as hell and emotional, because I kept thinking through this whole year of everything taking place, my body continued to fail me repeatedly, and no one could tell me why that was happening, which is a really scary place to be. So that landed me in the hospital for a 4-day stay. I'll never forget laying in those beds. They ran every test imaginable: lupus, multiple sclerosis, Guillain-Barré, all these different things that they had in their mind that might be going wrong, but everything came back that I didn't have any of those things. So again, there was no answer for my problem. They had signs everywhere that I was not allowed to get out of bed on my own, that I was high fall risk. Can't go to the bathroom on your own, can't go down the hallway on your own. I really lost all functioning from that standpoint. So I got out of the hospital, things progressed, I continued to search, and I found a guy who specialized in neuromuscular diseases. In that time, I had been also diagnosed with 3 forms of arthritis: rheumatoid arthritis, palindromic rheumatism, and psoriatic arthritis, which are all fun things, right? Not to have to deal with on their own, but then on top of it, I had all these muscle issues. So I had gone for lots of tests and lots of follow-up appointments, and I got a call one day from the nurse. Angie, Dr. Smith, his name is Dr. Stephen Smith, wants to see you because we finally know what the problem is. Awesome, I thought, because if you know what the problem is, guess what? In my mind, you could fix it. So this was going to be the best day in my whole entire life, because I would know what the problem was, and then we just move forward with the plan, and everything's going to be okay. Finally, the answer was coming. We can schedule you on November 4th, she said. Great, double blessing. That's my son's 2nd birthday, and I'm going to get the best news ever of my life. I showered that day, I curled my hair, I was looking like $1,000,000 because today was the day. Drove my hour down to the doctor's office, get in there. The nurse practitioner and Dr. Smith were in there waiting, and it was one of these: Angie, we have good news and we have bad news. The good news is we know exactly what you have. He had taken 6 pieces of my bicep and 36 vials of blood to do some ischemic blood testing to find out that I have a rare neuromuscular disease called mitochondrial myopathy. I had no idea at the time what that meant, but it's a rare neuromuscular disease that attacks the cells, the mitochondria portion of the cell in your body, and it causes a lot of problems. So that was the good news. What was the bad news I was waiting for? The bad news was, he said, mitochondrial myopathy is a progressive disease. It will attack all of your organs. You will experience diabetes, drooping eyelids, blindness, deafness, paralysis. Sitting in that doctor's office, taking that, turned the day into the best day ever. It was like one of those big screech sounds that you hear in the movies where everything comes to a halt. And he didn't say it. He said that I needed to go home and prepare for what's to come, and that they didn't know how long the progression would take. So I had to ask the inevitable, right? Because we all know where that's going. Will that take my life? And the answer is yes. So I kept myself together until I got to the car, and then the floodgates just opened. And here's what else happened, is that when the floodgates opened like that, even though things were colorful a little bit again in my life because I knew what was going on, the biggest loop in the emotional roller coaster took place. All these things in your head when you get that news and you're driving home. So I could barely see the road in front of me, not because it was raining, but because I was crying so hard. What do you do? How do you tell people this? How long do I have? All these thoughts consume you, and then I got about 15 minutes home from the exit home and realized, oh my gosh, it's Sean's birthday. I need to pull my act together because we need to go celebrate, which I did. And the next morning I got on the computer and researched everything I could. Don't ever do that if they tell you to do that. Awful, completely awful. You know why? Because I couldn't find a good story. I couldn't find anyone who says, it's all right, Ange, you're going to be okay, you're going to overcome this and make it. It was all stories of hard progression and death. And then I saw stories where children had this disease as a result of their parent. So then I start worrying and concerned about what I may have done to my children. I'm happy to say that led to genetic testing. And I don't have the gene mutation for this disease, which means my children will not, from a hereditary perspective, necessarily get the disease I have. But when you sit in those chat rooms and you listen to everybody going downhill, and you read articles about the progression and what's to come, here's what happens at night. You lay in bed and you think about what it might be like to be confined to a wheelchair, or how you'll get around, or at what point you would sell your home because I could no longer go up the stairs if I'm confined, and what that means from a family perspective. And then your thoughts go to how long this is going to take. I had a newborn. He was 2 at the time when I got diagnosed, but a newborn when it started. So I had this in my head, the 5-year mark. Will I see him go to kindergarten? Who's going to help him tie his shoes? And then you think of the bigger things, like prom, weddings, and the ultimate, who will be your replacement when you're not there? And let me tell you, it's really hard to lay there and think that over and over again. I found myself reading The Power of Positive Thinking at one point, but prior to that, I would read The Last Lecture. If anybody read that, I just envisioned this man who was dying at the time of cancer when he wrote his book. But there's this vision, a coworker of him saw him driving down the road in his convertible, and she didn't know it was him at the time. She glanced over and thought, wow, that guy's so happy. I want to feel that way in life. He's got the radio going, the wind blowing through his hair, everything looks so good. And then when they pulled up to the stop sign, it took her breath away because she realized it was him. And he's in the middle of his process of dying from cancer. So my thoughts went to, how do I get to be that person? How do I get to die gracefully and be the happy one all the way till the end? I was very conflicted. I didn't know how to do that because I spent a lot of my time crying. So the emotional roller coaster at times was too much. And at one point, I woke up and I thought, what in the world am I doing trying to figure out how to die gracefully when truly all I want to do is live? And I knew there had to be a way. And that started my progression into taking a proactive approach. Because my life went from very vibrant, happy, colorful, I had 2 kids, a great husband, all this stuff, to being gray and dim. So when you start taking a proactive approach to life, guess what? A little bit of the color comes back. So what is the difference between being inspired and creating this healthy, vibrant life for yourself or not? It's about being proactive. It's about taking the inspiration, those influences that directly impact you, and turning it into something that will forever change your life. The lady who emailed me that I told you about earlier, I told her in a response, first off, I had very little to do with you changing your life. I'm glad I could be a spark for that person. I'm glad that I could be an inspiration for that one day that she was with me. She's from Illinois. She took all of that back with her to Illinois and created change for herself. But you have to be proactive to do that. And so today, the rest of the talk, I want to give you ways to start being proactive, to start implementing. Because don't you think, if you think of all the people you've worked for, managers, leaders in our community, the people who lead the best implement. They listen, they're inspired, they understand what the needs are, and then they implement. And the implementation is what creates change. And now's the time to do that. So I want to start with a concept here. Oh, go ahead. About healthy boundaries, because in order for us to do well for ourselves, we have to have some boundaries in place. Do you agree with that? Yeah. Healthy boundaries have to do with the things that are most important in our life. So when you think about these boundaries, I think of it as, does anybody do Pilates in here? Yeah? If you do Pilates, everything starts from the core, right? And you build your core, and when your core is sound and solid, everything else will be healthy as well, and you can move outward from there. These boundaries I think of in the same fashion. You have the must-haves, which are the core of everything that should exist in your life. It's the orange part of the diagram up there. Your must-haves are all the things in your life that you must have to live well, to be happy, to have a long, healthy life. Must-haves can include your kids, your husband, pets, because those bring great joy to us too, right? It can include your health, exercise. It can include the essentials like food and water. Some of these are very basic things, but they're things that must exist in your must-have box. And when you know that it's a must-have, then the next thing you do is you better make time for all those things because that's what you're deeming most important in your life. The second next area is called your negotiables. In my house, we have a few non-negotiables when it comes to food, but you should really have those in life as well. Negotiable things are things that you could leave it or take it, and you'll probably be just fine from a happiness level, from a health level, from overall joy and fulfillment. So I always say social media is one of the biggest things. If you've ever found yourself sitting on Facebook for an hour at night before you go to bed, or watching TV for 2 hours, when maybe you could have done something even healthier, better for yourself, that would be a negotiable thing. Where sometimes, you know what, you just need that time to throw your feet up, sit back on the couch, relax, and have some brainless activity, watching whatever show you enjoy. It's part of life. But it doesn't mean that it needs to be every single night, because it might create poor habits that don't serve the must-haves that are on your list. So it's a negotiable item. The next part is the infrequent and unnecessary. And this is where I want to spend a little time. Because in order for us to live a healthy, vibrant life, we have to really create some boundaries around the things that do not serve us. This can be relationships. It can be activities. For some, it can be even to the extent of volunteerism. And it's not that you have to negate all of that, but you have to ask yourself, how is this serving me in my life right now? Is it allowing me to be everywhere I want to be with my must-haves? Is it allowing me to get the exercise I need? Am I able to prep my meals? Do I have enough time to spend with those loved ones that are in the must-haves list? Or is it taking away from that? I used to be the type A person who I would say yes to everything. I would never say no. My husband would say, stop being the superhero. Because if they needed 300 cupcakes for the bake sale and someone else didn't do it, I'd be up till 1 in the morning getting the cupcakes done so that it was there. Never in my wildest dreams would I think to say no to that. It's not that you have to say no to everything, but you have to decide what is going to fall into the infrequent and what might fall into the unnecessary. For relationships, I'll tell you this. Sometimes we can't make a relationship unnecessary in our life, but you can manage it and make it infrequent if needed. Because what I have learned through my own health journey is that I have limited space in my life for repetitive negativity. And I try to be there for others, but when you get inundated with the negative all the time, and you're trying to do well for yourself, you need to create some boundaries. So it might mean talking to that person once a quarter instead of once every month. Or meeting them when you have this available space and time in your life to take something like that on. The infrequent could be a volunteering opportunity that you have. Who's ever signed up to do something and the thing's going to take place on Friday night, right? So you sign up a month in advance and you're all gung-ho. As time comes closer, you think, darn it, why did I sign up for that thing? Shoot, Friday's 2 days away. I don't even know why I did this. I'd rather be sitting at home watching a football game. Whatever. You lead up to the whole thing, and you're not happy to be there, and you just gripe to yourself about why you even signed up to do it. But then you go. You might have a good time, you might not. But if that was the progression all along, then that might fall in your infrequent bucket, and you start only doing things that you're very passionate about and that serves you, because you will be that much better to give to others and serve while you're at that function. It's different for everybody. We're all individually and divinely created, and our lives are no different. My life is going to parallel some of yours in some places, but in others it's going to be very different. So there can't be this master plan about what you should include in your life or what not. You're the master, and you've got to figure out what should exist and what might need to go to the wayside or become less frequent. That's your first homework assignment leaving here today. I will email this to Rhea so that you guys can put it on your intranet site and you'll have access to it. Take time. Sit down with your family and figure out what needs to be on that must-have list if necessary so you can cover all of your bases. And let me tell you, from a kid perspective, I've quickly learned it's not always about the amount of time that I spend with them. But if I give them the quality of time, and this is no different from my husband, honestly, but you give them quality time when you are together, man, does that ever feed them. And then they're happy and ready for the next time. When you're done with your healthy boundaries, I want you to create your life rules. Everything has rules, right? There are rules in your home, I'm sure. You have rules at work. So why not have life rules? They don't have to be hard and stern and fast, but they have to be helping you live the life that you desire to live. Your life rules should include and help you achieve everything in those must-haves for the boundaries that you've created. If one of your rules is to exercise 3 times a week because you find yourself not doing so, then put it in the rule book and you live by your life rules. I hear a lot of people say in my coaching, well, when I'm retired or when this happens, or I just need to get through these next 2 months and then I'll do this. But guys, time goes by really quickly. And time just builds on more time and more time. And in what seemed like for me just one day, although there was plenty I was doing to build up to this disease in my body, you don't know what's going to take place. And we're not guaranteed anything from a time perspective. So take moments, think about what it is you truly desire in this life. Think about what inspires you and use those as your sparks, as your fire to gain momentum to move forward. And make sure that the life that you desire aligns with the rules that you put in place for yourself, because it's a guide for you. And when you fall off track or that list of rules is staring at you because you posted in your desk or whatever, and you think, crap, I haven't exercised 3 times this week. Week 2 goes by. Crap, I still didn't get to the 3 times exercise this week. Because it does happen. You need to be kind to yourself, first and foremost. Figure out why you're not doing what you want to be doing in your life, and then adjust accordingly. Sometimes we can sit here forever and talk about all the things we should do and why we do them or why we don't do them and all the things that are in the way, when it really comes down to sometimes just taking action and making it happen. I wanted to give you a few key things to think about or consider in your life rules. These are called the Daily 5 to Live By. There's a little card in all of your bags that has it on there. But the first is to enjoy life, because that's what we should be doing, right? We're born and we have this wonderful personality and this wonderful giving attitude as an infant, and all we want to do is be loved and love. As we age and we get new experiences and mentors and people shaping our lives as we go, sometimes we lose that spark a little bit. Bring yourself back to enjoying life. Find the positive in everything, even the not so great moments, and laughter is incredibly healthy for you. So a not so great moment I thought I would share with you is when we lived in Colorado Springs. It had been a very long day. One of those things, it's 9:30 at night and I think, oh my gosh, I have nothing for lunch for Tori to go to school the next day. Have you ever been in that boat before? And off you go into the dark. 9:45, you get into the grocery store. Well, just as we all should do, I know what to do to be healthy, right? Hydration is one of them, but that day I don't think I hydrated too well, or maybe the day leading up, because my lips were so dry that in the dark drive over to the grocery store, I pulled out my lip balm and I did one of those deals where you hit at least an inch around the lips, right? And oh, it felt so good, nice and moistened. Off I go into the store, picking up my stuff. Start at the produce section just like I always do. And if you've ever seen me in City Market, I will stop and say hello to you and ask you how life is going. Of course, I do the same thing there. So, hey, how's it going tonight? Just a look, nothing in return. All right, go off to the produce into the deli area. Hey, have a great night to the person working at the deli counter. No response. Thinking, what in the world is with people? It's full moon or something, right? Go around to the freezer aisle, and on I go. 45 minutes in the store. This is a store that I could walk to. It's literally 1.5 miles from my house. I frequent it all the time. Pull my grocery cart up to the cashier, and she looks at me like I have 3 eyes going on. Give her all my stuff, and I thought, what in the world is up with everyone tonight? Drive home. I am one of those people that I will be damned if I carry in grocery bags twice. There's no second trip to the car. So if I can make it happen, I'm making it happen. I pile all those bags onto my arms, 10 bags on each side or whatever it is, and I'm walking in the house. My husband Rob's watching TV. I walk by him, hey babe, hey. He looks at me, oh my gosh, what's going on with your lips? What do you mean what's going on with your lips? Babe, I think you're having an allergic reaction. I didn't feel anything. What do you mean what's going on with my lips? I walk over to the mirror. And sure enough, I look like I have an allergic reaction because I didn't take clear lip balm. I took the ruby red stuff and did one of these deals around my whole 1-inch mouth to give myself nice saturation for my dehydrated self. So no wonder I thought, I started busting out laughing. No wonder no one said anything to me in the grocery store. I looked like Ronald McDonald in there. I was just thankful I didn't see anybody I really, really knew, although then maybe they would have told me what I had done wrong. But you need to enjoy life every step of the way. The not so great moments, looking like Ronald, or the great moments that occur. You can find the positive in anything that you go through in life. So try to stay motivated and inspired to do just that. The second one is to be aware. Our bodies tell us so much in a day's time. If you think about waking up this morning till now, maybe you experienced feeling tired this morning when you woke up. Maybe you had a headache. Maybe since you've been here, your tummy's been upset or off. Maybe you've experienced some joint pain. We all experience different things throughout the day. Most of the time, we keep on trucking, and we don't pay attention to what is going on. So be aware. Listen to your body and what it tells you. And then the final step is you need to take some action to fulfill the needs of your body. Make sure you're giving it the tools it needs, the hydration it needs, the food it needs, whatever it may be, so that you can live well. Find something to inspire you to do that for yourself if you don't do it today. Maybe my story can be an inspiration, so you don't sit in the doctor's office that day coming and find out that you've got something bigger going on than you ever expected. You know I can't stand up here without telling you to eat well, is that correct? Because it's all tied in together. It's about the choices we make in life and the choices we make at the table. When you feed yourself whole, nourishing foods that come from our earth, we're provided a multitude of nutrients that help fight disease, give us energy, help people lose weight, get all of those biometric testing numbers back into shape so that you're not in a risk category. And guys, you just genuinely feel better. Food has been an amazing tool in my life to get me back on track. Often people will say, well, where are you in your health now after having shared that story? My son will turn 8 this November 4th. So that day is always a big day. 6 years since diagnosis, 8 years since it all started. And I am rocking it, right? I love life. I live differently than I ever have before. I view that journey as one of the most treasured gifts I'll ever be given. And that is what inspires me to keep going on and on. I still have some limitations. I have to have boundaries in my life because I know that that will serve me. But that's what we all have, right? You got to figure out how life needs to exist for you and make sure you work within those confines. So I exercise, I run a business, I've got 2 great kids that keep me active, prep meals just like all of you, cook every night, and eat in a healthy manner, because when you nourish the body, everything from the inside out feels nourished. So make sure that you start with that. The next thing, I believe, is to hydrate. We often hear 64 ounces a day of water that we need. Every process in our body, every single one, depends on water. Our cells need good hydration as well. So when we don't give it that, something suffers. And over time, you do it consistently enough, something will break down. We live in a dry climate too, and at altitude. So my magic number, I say, is 80 ounces a day. Drink 8 ounces when you get up, 8 ounces every hour, or you could pop it up to 10 ounces. But if you just think of 10 ounces every hour in an 8-hour workday, you're golden. You've got at least your 80 ounces in. Nourish your body through fluids as well as through good, healthy foods. And then the last one is exercise. Because our body needs movement. When people worked in the farms and they were outside all day gathering and hunting and all of that, they had the movement they needed. It was part of their survival. Today, part of our survival, unfortunately, is sitting in a chair a lot of the day behind a desk. Your body craves movement. Our joints need it, our muscles need it, our brain needs it, so that we can get some relief and some stress reduction and management. So please make time to do that. That should be in your must-haves as well, if it's not currently there. And it doesn't have to mean that you go to the gym for 2 hours a day. Find something you can do with a friend from work, even 20 minutes on your lunch hour. Go out for a nice brisk stroll, get some fresh air, feel rejuvenated and refreshed to come right back to your activities. So we talked about the daily 5 to live by. Let's go to our next slide. Now's your time to soar. We are inspired by different things. It can be small things in the day. I love it when my little guy says, "Mom, I just want you to know, you're the bestest mom I ever had," right? And I think, oh boy, you're lucky I'm the only one you've ever had, because I might lose that contest if I wasn't, right? But those are the little moments. You can be inspired by things like that, or you can be inspired by reading some health article about a food that could help your body. It doesn't matter what it is or where it comes from, but find those things. Find what sparks you to take action in your life. And if you need a little help with that, then that's what I'm here for. I can help you in your journey. Here's the thing, is that we all know what to do, right? If I asked you 5 things to do right now to be healthy and happy in your life, I'm sure you could give me 5 plus 5 more. But it doesn't mean we always do it. So it's time to take action. If it's important to you, you'll find a way. And if it's not, you'll find an excuse. The person who stated this is anonymous, so I don't know who to give credit to. But I love that quote, and it keeps me in check. I'll often have people say, "Angie, it must feel so good to be healthy now," and just as if things are easy in my life. Life is not easy. It's not easy for any of you, I'm sure, and it's sure not easy for me either. But you have to find ways to serve yourself. So there are 2 questions I want you to ask with every decision you make, whether it's a life choice decision or something at the table that you're nourishing your body with. It is, how does this serve me? And the second question is, what does this provide me? If you ask yourself those 2 questions, or even one of them, it will allow you to pause long enough to figure out how to make the choice. Or maybe you made a poor choice and you thought, gosh, that didn't serve me at all. Then you learn from that situation and you can make a different choice later. But you're in control. We're given this beautiful body of ours right from the get-go. We don't have to invest anything in it. We can keep it clean just like we tidy our car, right? You can take it in for regular checkups like you might an oil change. But if you don't give it the daily attention it needs, the love, the care, all of that, the daily 5 to live by, at some point something's going to break down. So if you find yourself in excuse mode versus I'm going to make it happen mode, you have a little card in your bag that's called inspiration card. And there are 3 questions on there. The first is, who is it that means most to me? Who is it in your life that means most to you? If you can't find inspiration from within, that should be able to inspire you. The second thing is, it says, I believe I can blank. Please believe in yourself, because anything is possible in this world. So do not limit your beliefs or limit yourself in any circumstance. I believe I can survive. I believe I can live the life I desire. I believe I can live a long, healthy life and have fun while doing it. And the last question on there that you need to answer for yourself is, if this was your last moment to take your last breath before leaving this beautiful earth, what is it you would want to say? And that needs to be a driving force, because I sure as hell wouldn't want to be laying there in my last breath saying, darn it, I wish I really would have paid more attention to the must-haves in my life and allow all these other things to fill in the space. So prioritize, guys. Figure out what means most to you and find a way to do it, because I know you can. Thank you for having me today. I'll take time to answer some questions, and then we'll wrap up in about 5 minutes. I've stumped you? Yeah.
This thing about eating healthy is super difficult because of the way food is marketed in this country, and so things look amazing in the stores, and then they're actually not that good. So I'm curious your thoughts on what eating healthy means to you.
Okay, so eating healthy, what it means to me was the question, is I have a couple of things in my life rules, and here's how they go. The 80-20 rule is where I would like for my family to eat 80% plant-based foods, which means it's coming from our earth, so that includes your fruits and veggies, your leafy greens, your whole grains, nuts and seeds, legumes. There's a lot to be had in that area. Because if I live that way, that means that I'm getting all the nutrients my body needs to be able to fight disease and keep my cells happy, which is a very big must-have on my list with the disease that I have. So the 80-20 rule, the 20 part of it, that includes sometimes foods. So animal-based products, what I call a transition food, which might be an organic, boxed, prepared ahead of time food that I would add to something. Like maybe a jarred can of, or jarred glass jar of tomato sauce or something, organic sauce that I might spruce up a little bit for a quick meal with all the vegetables that I saute. So the 80-20 rule, the non-negotiables that exist in my home are there's never corn syrup to be had, or high fructose corn syrup. We really don't have any processed food in the house, maybe organic tortilla chips once in a while, or an organic chip for a fun event. But things that come from a bag need to exist, or a box or a can, need to go into the 20% sometimes rule. And then diet sweeteners are the other thing that is a non-negotiable in my home. And guys, before I got sick, guess what? I was a sugar addict and I lived off of Diet Coke. So I was not the picture, I was a picture of health. I was athletic, ran a marathon, played college basketball. I fueled my body in awful ways and made it through until I hit that time after my child was born. So I've learned a lot about what the food can provide for me and the family. So I would say when you think about eating well, try to eat foods that are closest to their original source, right? So an apple off the tree versus apple juice is just a good rule of thumb. Genetically modified foods are also a non-negotiable in my home. It can be hard to avoid that altogether unless you educate yourself on what the GMO products are in the United States of America. But hopefully we can get some labeling, right? Go vote on that. But I would say that's the rule to live by. If you have kids at home, we have what we call always foods and sometimes foods, because it's life, and if I take everything from them, I'm sure they'll go off to college someday and completely rebel and just douse themselves in all the bad stuff. So they know food coloring and those kinds of things aren't part of our everyday eating style. And they understand why. So I hope that's helpful. But those are some of the guidelines. Go to the source of the food. Try to eat locally, organic if possible. And then if not, select those foods that are less pesticide ridden than not. EWG.org, Environmental Working Group, is a nonprofit organization. And they rate all of the produce, so you can know what you have as produce that is high pesticide use, and then produce that is not so much. So if you have to find a conventional or you can't afford all organic, you have some options. What else can I answer for you? Are you inspired to do well for yourself? All right, take the time to fill out those cards, the inspiration card, and just put that somewhere in your desk drawer, somewhere. You could put it on your mirror. My mirror in my bathroom is full of yummy quotes and things that inspire me to do well for myself that day. So spruce up your mirror if you so desire. Put it someplace where you see it every day, but not necessarily everyone else. You can post it in your car or whatever it may be. But allow that to be an inspiration on a daily basis, so that you can have momentum to go forward and implement the things you've learned along the way to make life change for yourself. Thank you.